risk is that the greatest opportunities and the greatest pitfalls fall into one aspect, and what I call it's the unfathomable part of today's landscape. And the difference of today, what gives us such great opportunity and such great risk, is that the landscape is unfathomable itself. What do I mean by that? That it is physically impossible to understand or fathom the size, the scope, and the scale of the landscape. It's physically and unfathomable how big the size, scope, and scale of your potential audience is. I'm going to stop there for a second and let you understand what I mean, meaning you think about, you have no limitations. Peter Groverman is an unlimited, abundant dude. I've met him, incredible entrepreneur, but he, like I, when we saw the Webb telescope and saw a picture of billions of galaxies with trillions of variables, I can imagine it exceeded our reality. It exceeded our imagination, and it become unfathomable how big the universe is. We just can't get a gear to it. Well, I believe the same thing holds true in media, that it's unfathomable, even for old goats like me, to understand what 7.6 billion people accessible means. And to that end, this is the biggest challenge as well as the biggest opportunity in media, is the size, scope, and scale of the addressable market. Secondarily, this now, to me, creates a great opportunity for those who read Shakespeare, because Shakespeare, to me, is the most influential person to take advantage of and protect against the size, scope, and scale of the audience. What do I mean by that? Number one, Shakespeare said, "To thine own self be true." Now, I know people have taught me that, empowered me with that, and inspired me to be my own self and not care what other people think. But it wasn't productive and accessible and gracious to do when you lived in a small town in Akron, Ohio, where if you were somebody who wanted to be themselves, whether it was, your politics, your religions, your philosophies, your creativity, you would not be accepted. You would be scorned. And this historically is true about human nature. But what happens with the unfathomable, what happens with the size, scope, and scale of an audience, we finally have the freedom, as Shakespeare saw thousands of years ago, to be thine own self. Because even if you're Dr. Pimple Popper, because of the size, scope, and scale of the audience, there's a bunch of freaks out there that love watching pimples being popped. And they can have their own Bravo show and have more subscribers than the entire Pro Football Hall of Fame, even though football is the most popular sport in America, 2-1, and the Hall of Famers are the most well-known of all the football players. Why is this true? Because to thine own self be true. And when you know your essence, you know your frequency, and you're able to extend that, amplify it, create a spectrum, the opportunities now become defined in the quantitative side of it, and you're able to take advantage and protect yourself against the size, scope, and scale. Secondly, Shakespeare also said, the whole world is your stage. The problem was he didn't know that it actually was. And now it's proven the whole world is your stage. So if you put a billboard up on the 405 in California, it's not just the value of seeing the billboard as you drive by with the millions of cars that are still stuck in traffic. It's the ability to create content of the millions of cars that drive by and create that content of the billboard, modify it onto every platform from Instagram Reels to Facebook fan pages to TikTok to LinkedIn to TV to radio, anywhere you want. You can amplify it after it's modified, so that one billboard that was in the past supposed to only address an immediate audience of people driving by, now, once again, it can reach 7.6 million people. So capture, modify, amplify, and even better, when your lease runs out from Infinity Broadcasting for that billboard, people 10 years from now can still see the content with your brand on the billboard. And those people who understand Shakespeare are at least incrementally creating value out of an unfathomable size, scope, and scale of an audience.